Hello, BookTube. I mentioned in a recent video that thanks to it being a lovely weekend, the first real spring-feeling weekend in a lot of parts of the United States, there are not only birds in the air, but finally bugs in the air here in Boston. A lot of people last weekend went to library sales, they went to their used bookstore, they drove around for yard sales and whatnot. And since I am the most accessible parasocial creature of them all, I'm in touch with a lot of these people directly. So I was getting pictures all day long on Sunday of people saying, "Ooh, look at all that I found. Look at this stack that I found." I don't hold that against people. I know that a lot of the people who were sending me those pictures work all week long or go to school all week long, and this is their only chance to go looking for books. But I still felt a little bit of FOMO. I still was getting bombarded with pictures of books that people were finding. Even some people didn't even bother to go to the effort of a library book sale or a yard sale or anything. They just went to their local Ollie's and found a bunch of great stuff. This filled me with a desire to go a book shopping. So I did. This morning I went to the only bookshop that I go to when I don't have a car. I only go to the Brattle bookshop. I don't go anywhere else. So I went to the Brattle bookshop first thing this morning. Well, I got there first thing. There were still people there. I'm not a big, wild fan of that. But more importantly, worse, there was also a van parked in the sale lot, blotting out part of the books that were there because somebody was doing work inside the shop. I still did a fair amount of shopping, and despite those impediments, I got a pile of books that I want to show you. So we'll start with the one mass market paperback, which I confess, I got it first of all because I've never seen this cover before. But I also got it because I'm kind of missing more frequent video updates from Gina Stanier. So I got a Mary Stewart book. I got Touch Not the Cat. Trust me, I'm not gonna. I've never seen this particular cover, but this is Mary Stewart is first of all an utterly remarkable figure in literary history. Don't think she's ever had a biography, no more than one biography. She's a great story to tell. Her life story is a great story to tell. But she also wrote utterly distinctive books. Ironically enough, if you know her, you're probably going to know her from her Arthurian books, which are different from anything else she ever wrote. Most of what she wrote was like this. Sort of quasi-Gothic contemporary adventure stories, usually with a very strong female lead. The main female character here is in these novels is often, I don't want to use the word plucky, because I think Mary Stewart would come back from the dead and punch me if I did, but different, very different from the female characters in any other. You could broadly call these adventure novels from the middle of the 20th century, and her characters aren't like any others in that genre at that time. A couple of years ago, I reread This Rough Magic, which I very much liked. I recently reread Madam Will You Talk, specifically because I saw it on Gina Stander's channel. And I saw this, and I grabbed it. It's a mass market paperback. I'm always more lenient about grabbing them, even if I'm not sure. Then these next two books actually are the product of one of those, hey, I went out and got books videos. I watched a ton. There were a ton of videos like that on BookTube. One of them was from Daniel's Bibliophagy, a wonderful channel that if I remember, I will leave a link to it. He showed he had a crappy week, so he indulged in retail therapy. Got a whole bunch of books from a whole bunch of different places. And one of the things he showed were old Donald Wollheim science fiction anthologies, hardcover anthologies, that Wollheim used to do once a year. In addition to everything, editing anthologies all the rest of the time. One or two anthologies a month, an extremely prolific editor. He also did a big marquee mainstream series of the best science fiction of the year. He did that for a long time. In Daniel's video, he mentioned that he collects these things, and that he's moving on from them, expanding outward from them to Gardner Dozois's best science fiction of the year's best science fiction, that series, which are much bigger. Their claim to fame is that they're enormous books, so you get a lot for your money. There's a whole shelf of those at the Brattle. I felt a little wistful going straight from Donald Wollheim to Gardner Dozois when for my money, and I think for the money of a lot of science fiction fans of a certain vintage out there themselves, the best anthology editor of them all is a guy named Terry Carr, who is not remembered. His works are not seen or collected by anybody, and who was every bit as prolific as Donald Wollheim. He wasn't as prominent as Donald Wollheim. Wollheim basically invented the science fiction genre that you know today. Found, nurtured, mentored, paid, and bailed out virtually every science fiction author whose name you would know. Created the ace double flipping mass market paperbacks that I've shown you on this channel many, many times. Created the whole run of those Daw yellow spine mass market paperbacks. Was at Ace forever and did all kinds of work. Flooded the market with science fiction paperbacks. There is currently a gigantic collection of those making its way through the Brattle's digestive system. And I look at them on the shelf that's dedicated to them now, and I think all of this is Don Wollheim. All of it is. Almost all of this is him. So, spurred by the sight of that, I got a couple of those anthologies. I got the 1977 annual World's Best with this terrific cover. And I got the 1972 annual World's Best with a Frank Frazetta cover. And the nice thing about these older hardcover anthologies is not only will you see stories by names that have become great, but you'll also see stories by names by authors that the anthologist really liked. Donald Wollheim he always used to say I think a lot about the future, but I read stories in the present. All I need is for a story to really wow me, and it will go onto the long list to get into my book. I don't need it to be someone that I think is going to be read in 100 years. And that turned out to be true. So take this as an example here. For the table of contents here, we have The Fourth Profession by Larry Niven. We have Gleepsite by Joanna Russ. How fantastic. Oh, my, I don't have that in any other print form. We have Little Knowledge by Poul Anderson. We have Real Time World by Christopher Priest. We have With Friends Like These. Oh, my. That's the headline short story that was collected in an anthology, With Friends Like These by Alan Dean Foster. We have Transit of Earth by Arthur Clarke. We have Gehenna by Barry Malzberg. We have One Life Furnished in Early Poverty by Harlan Ellison. And we have Occam's Scalpel by Ted Sturgeon. Okay, fine. Those were big names at the time. They mostly are known or recognizable now, but there are plenty of other names in here that aren't. Leonard Tushnet, Eddie Burton, Stephen Tall, Michael Coney, Coney, who I know was Wollheim loved his stuff. I don't know what became of Michael Coney. He never wrote a science fiction or fantasy masterpiece, that's for sure. I'd be willing to bet that he's in the 1977 volume too, because Wollheim liked him. Brian Aldiss is in here, John Varley, Michael Coney. Yep. Richard Cowper is in here, fantastic. Lester Del Rey, Isaac Asimov, the Bicentennial Man, fantastic. And another Joanna Russ, My Boat. Oh, wonderful. Oh, and for James Tiptree, we have Houston, Houston, Do You Read? So I got these two. I didn't see any others. I might have been tempted to get more if I'd seen them, but I was pushed by BookTube. I was pushed by all of these videos that I was seeing of people going out buying books. So I grabbed those two, and they won't take long at all to do. I might put one of them on the hopper for tonight. Then I got an anthology volume, but not one of those big Avenel hardcover anthologies that I've been showing you. There are still a few of those at the Brattle. There are a couple of Louis L'Amour, for instance, which I thought about for June on the Range, but I prefer my Louis L'Amour in battered little mass market paperbacks, or the e-copies that I have that don't need any delicate handling. And also, if I'm gonna get those old Avenel hardcover omnibus volumes of Louis L'Amour, I want the whole set. The whole set was just there and for a set price, sitting on a shelf at the Book Barn in Connecticut last month, but I said no to it then because I don't want. Who wants hardcovers of Louis L'Amour? But there was him. There was a volume of Mickey Spillane that was there. There was Luke Short, Max Brand, It was Frank Slaughter, Frank L. Slaughter. Do any of you remember Frank L. Slaughter? Frank L. Slaughter and Morris West were both there. I don't think the Morris West volume had The Shoes of the Fisherman, or I might have been tempted, but I don't think it did. But names from bygone eras, but not any of the immediate buys that I would get. This is an anthology volume, but this is a trade paperback, a rather nice one. A trade paperback of Lawrence Block. 5 great novels, really a stylish thing there. This is Coward's Kiss, Grifter's Game, You Could Call It Murder, The Girl with the Long Green Heart, and Deadly Honeymoon. And I don't need any prompting to buy Lawrence Block, and I don't need any prompting to buy murder mysteries. Whether it's March Mystery Madness or not, I still read these things. I'm pretty sure that the first thing I will knock off from this volume will be You Could Call It Murder, and I'm pretty sure that will be soon. Okay, all right. This next one is just a bit of sass, just a bit. Although you never know, inspiration can come in from the most unlikely places. I did a Steve stream. I think it was last night. I did a live stream, and the live streams are lots and lots of fun. Lots and lots of people show up. Lots and lots of fun to do. But the live streams also attract new people. I have been apprised that probably a large percent of the viewership of my channel in 2024 are brand new people who did not know it existed in 2022, much less 2019. And that reared its head on my live stream last night because somebody asked a "Have you read?" question, which for those of you who are new to the channel, the "Have you read?" question is when somebody asks me if I've read something. Which you might think, oh, how can that be outrageous? It's literally all I do. It's literally all I've done for longer than your parents have been alive every day, day in and day out, all night long while you're asleep, while your parents are asleep, while your grandparents are sleeping. All that time, it's literally all I've been doing. So maybe you don't know that, and that's the key here, is that there's total innocence here. Nobody knows that. But that's why I have traditionally had a short fuse when it comes to "Have you read?" questions. Because somebody will start to talk to me. They'll hear me talking about books. I would think that would be giveaway enough. They will hear me talking about books, and they will say, you like historical fiction? Oh, have you ever read the Memoirs of Henry VIII by Elizabeth George? Or the equivalent, whatever it is. And that's always, I shouldn't let that be as annoying as it is, because it's never done except in innocence. Certainly in that live stream last night, it was a totally innocent question. And the question was about this book. I saw it, and of course I grabbed it. It was about The Voyage of the Narwhal by Andrea Barrett. This is her historical novel of hers that I haven't read. To be fair, I haven't reread this since it came out. So that would have been 1998. That's 25 years. That's a long time. So I'm due for a reread. I did read it because it made the press. It got reviewed everywhere. This is a historical novel about the search that's organized for the Franklin expedition, a lost Arctic expedition. And we get the story through the viewpoint of a character named Erasmus, but it's not my Erasmus. And he tells us all about his captain and his shipmates and the perils that they faced. And from that, you're supposed to get not only a kind of unfolding plot about whether or not they succeed, but also a view of the world of 19th century Arctic exploration. It's if I remember it correctly, and I do, I remember a lot of this. I tend to forget a lot of what I read. It's a really good pendant reading experience to The Terror by Dan Simmons, oddly enough. They make a really good pair, even though this thing is, the word I would use for Andrea Barrett's fiction would be genteel, and not meant in a mocking way. These are, her books are lovely, filigreed, gem-like finished things. And this was, I think, her most ambitious and most successful. So I saw it, I immediately thought of that comment, and I had to get it. Then we have Richard Ellmann. Some of you, those of you who read nonfiction might know this guy because he wrote a great biography of James Joyce and a great biography of Oscar Wilde. Ironically enough, I have had to appreciate the biographical chops of this guy solely through biographies of people I don't like, people whose work does not interest me. Oscar Wilde and James Joyce, the two most famous Irish writers of all time. I don't like either one of them for different reasons. But I don't like either one of them, and yet I loved his biographies of them. And I found along the river run selected essays by Richard Ellmann, which of course is a lie. The subtitle is a lie. It's a popular lie. You will see it all the time. These are book reviews. These aren't essays. This isn't Montaigne in his tower. This is Ellmann collecting all sorts of stuff that he did for Bob Silver, the New York Review of Books, or whatever. I'm going to send you a couple of books. They seem like your thing. Here at The Economist or the American Scholar, we'd love you to write about them. Feel free to take 3,000 words. And this book is full of that. I'm going to have to go through this carefully for the table of contents, thinking about future Steve. This is going to go on the bookshelf with books, collected book reviews and book essays and whatnot. And this is, the chapters are like this, but he has not gone over. He has retained the cutesy-poo titles that these originally ran with. So you get Years Without Analog, Becoming Exiles, Ez and Old Billiam, Gazebos and Gas Houses, Love in the Catskills. And those are all about individual people. Half of them are about James Joyce, the other half are about W.H. Auden. I'm going to just need to go through the book and annotate the table of contents in pencil, just put in parentheses on the side who the piece is about, so I don't have to just rack my brains remembering. But this is great. This will probably be the Ellmann book that I enjoy the most. Then we have, this is edited by Horace Knowles, and it fills a pattern. The Brattle, they get all kinds of things. They go out shopping for everything. And right now, in the sale lot, they have boxes and boxes of old issues of Harper's Magazine. Century-old issues of Harper's Magazine. A lot of them in really good condition. Just boxes and boxes and boxes of them. So pretty much the whole run of Harper's is out there. And I saw those things a week ago when I was there with a guest. I saw those things, and I thought, get thee behind me, Satan. I am not going to start accumulating any more ephemera than I already have here. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not. Even though it would be tempting to get Harper's magazines from when Taft was in office. I'm still not going to do it. And I didn't. And I was browsing around that day. I was proud of myself, but I was thinking about all the stuff that I was missing. When I found an oversized anthology of artwork and pieces and photographs from Harper's, I thought, okay, all right. I might pass on the individual magazines, but I won't pass on this. So I got it. And today I found an earlier one. This is Gentlemen, Scholars, and Scoundrels, an anthology from Harper's. This has no artwork, except on the back. It's got a little bit of artwork on the back. But instead, this is just an anthology of pieces from, it says 1850 to the present, and the present here would be about 70 years ago. So a long stretch of the magazine. Fantastic. So I've got 2 Harper's anthologies. This is absolutely going to be full of writing that I love. Who we got here? The Men from Mars by John Houseman. One Man's Meat by E.B. White. Probably it first appeared in. We've got Whiskey is for Patriots by Bernie DeVoto. Who else? Who else do we have here? Who is Loyal to America by Henry Steele Commager. The Great Wall Street Crash by John Kenneth Galbraith. On Fear, The South in Labor by William Faulkner. Listen to This Dear by James Thurber. The Only Woman in the Lifeboat by Elsbeth Huxley. Who else? Anybody else? This thing's absolutely full. There's something by Peter DeVries in here. Fantastic. Horace to Tibullus by Gil Hyatt. That's going to be great. Mark Twain Speaks Out by Mark Twain. There's Gertrude Stein, A Self-Portrait by Catherine Ann Porter. Barker's Wild Oats by George Bernard Shaw. The Reviewing Business by Clifton Fadiman. Probably the first thing I'll read. This is just absolutely full of Harper's people. I'm sure that John J. Chapman will be in here too, which would be a treat, a real treat. So this is great. It will have, I'm sure it will have very different things in it than that bigger Harper's anthology, which is probably going for more general, flashy headline type stuff. This will be more literary. Fantastic. I found this one. This is one of a series. I am not going to get the whole series. I read the whole series as they were coming out. I read them again at an old library of mine once upon a time. I really appreciate them for the scholarship, but I'm not going to buy the whole series. But there was one volume that I love. This is a Boswell for the Defense. This is edited by William Winsat and Frederick Pottle. And Frederick Pottle is the presiding genius behind this whole series. There's Boswell for the Defense, Boswell Seeks a Wife, Boswell in on the Grand Tour, Boswell in Holland. I forget the name of every book in there. The most popular book in this whole series, basically a multi-volume biography of James Boswell told through documents and periods of time in his life. And the most popular one in this series by far was Boswell's London Journal, which I have. I wonder if this gives me a list of all of... Oh, it does. Okay, Boswell's London Journal was first, and that was a hit. That was a real hit. The hardcover sold out. There was a mass market paperback that did really well. Then Boswell in London, Boswell on the Grand Tour, Boswell on the Grand Tour again, Boswell in Search of a Wife, Boswell for the Defense. And that's what these things are. Oh my, oh goodness. Look at this. A fold-out map of, how big is this thing? Good Lord. A fold-out map of Boswell's, is that Boswell's London or is Edinburgh? Oh, it's his Edinburgh. Wow. Okay, fantastic. These are terrific things, but Boswell for the Defense is, I think, the most enjoyable other than Boswell's London Journal. Sorry, this thing is absolutely fighting me. Almost as if it had hands. It's doing such a good job of fighting me. Here, okay, all right. Okay, there we go. Because Boswell is so incredibly likable, but you don't get the sense that you would have wanted him as a defense attorney. You don't get the sense of that at all. This is going to be full of that, of everything that can be known about his legal practice, but it's also going to be this, I'm pretty sure, 1769, 1774. That will include lots of literary excursions to London, to the literary London of the day. Probably that covers the years that he was inducted into a very high-profile literary club. It'll certainly be the furthering of his relationship with Dr. Johnson. So this is, I don't want the whole series, but I have Boswell's London Journal, and now I have Boswell for the Defense. Those are the two that I really wanted, and this was right there for like $1, so I grabbed it. Then this next one is the third volume in a trilogy. I have the whole trilogy's ebooks. I don't have the first two books in the trilogy in print and paper book, and I don't want them. It's the third one that I want. I'm amazed that I got rid of it. This is by Rick Atkinson, and this is The Guns at Last Light. This is the third volume in the Liberation trilogy, but it, I think, works wonderfully well as a history of the war in Europe at the end of World War II. I love it for that. I love the way that it does that. I think the same thing could be said for the Third Reich at War by Richard Evans. It's meant to be the third volume in a series. It's meant to capstone a story, which is the Third Reich's life, its rise, its rule, its fall. But the Third Reich at War really works as well as a story of the war in Europe at the end. And this does too. Atkinson is such a fantastic writer. And I had this forever and ever. I don't know why I got rid of it. I guess maybe I was thinking I have the ebook, or maybe I was thinking, why do I want it if I don't have the other two volumes? But the other two volumes are really good, but ebooks are just fine for them. This I want in a print format. Then I found this next one is The Geese Fly High, Minnesota. And I want this with a dust jacket, but I don't think I'm ever going to find it that way. It's just the naked hardcover here, a dirty naked hardcover. It probably came out of somebody's attic. Look at that. Look at those end papers. Just incredible. That's the reason that I wanted this thing, is the artwork. This is by Florence Jacks, and Francis Jacks is the illustrator. We've seen him illustrating a lot of other books. This is all about going out in the wilderness in Minnesota. These beautiful, you've got beautiful full-page illustrations, but also spot illustrations at the beginning of every chapter, and littered all throughout here. There are some ducks running along to get takeoff on the water there. Jacks is such an incredible illustrator. Just amazingly good. And that's why I got this. The Brattle just recently, late last year, they bought a gigantic library of hunting literature. Deer and taking the dogs out and sunsets in the wilderness and whatnot. And I was momentarily tempted because a lot of those books are beautifully done, beautiful illustrations like this, and also often heartfeltly written. I just resisted all of them because their whole point is to kill. The whole point of the book is to go out and kill the things you're celebrating. So yes, you've written 300 pages about the glories of the wilderness in the Rockies and the deer that you encounter there and how majestic they look against a bright blue sunset and whatnot, and then you blow their head off. So I don't want to read that. And I know that is true in this book as well. I know that these two aren't going out here to look at ducks. They're going out here to kill ducks. They're going out here to kill geese, not to look at them, not to photograph them and rejoice in them as living beings, but instead to shoot them dead. But I get the impression, I'm hoping, that it will be toned down enough in this book so I can pay attention to all the rest of it. Because I think I read this out of a library, not in Minnesota. I think I read it out of a library in Iowa a long time ago. When did this come out? I'm telling myself that I will console myself with the artwork anyway, even if the book is bloodthirsty. Yeah, this came out in 1939, but I believe it's had a reprint since then. I could swear that I remember this thing, and I don't know that I would have that feeling if I hadn't read this. It's yeah, look at that. See, it's full of really good nature writing as well as artwork. Here we go. Let me read you just one passage here to give you a sense of what this is. Not that you're ever going to see this in your used bookstore. I felt again the antagonism which solitary places have for man, that I had felt so vividly in Arkansas. Not the profound threat here which you feel from the sea if you stop to feel it, even on the calmest day. And there, I could not put that any better. Profound threat. And not the awful aloofness which mountains with which mountains can turn their backs on you. This was an insecure feeling, this quaking, watery universe, this haven for hideous crawlers, where alligators slept under the gray water and snakes swam and twisted. This world repulsed me. I should have stayed where I belonged, on land. I love both those. Both those descriptions are absolutely true. They're absolutely true. The profound threat and the awful aloofness. When a mountain when you are close to dying on a mountain, you do not feel that the mountain is trying to kill you. You feel that with the ocean. It's ridiculous either way. These things aren't sentient. But on the ocean, you definitely feel that. But on the mountain, you don't. You just feel like, I'm a speck. And I was a lucky speck until this storm turned up out of nowhere, or until I slipped and broke my ankle with no way out and no way to walk out. Or I was a lucky speck on the side of this mountain until I kept getting the sensation every time I camp at night that I am being watched, that I'm being followed. And of course, you're being followed by a bear. That doesn't quite know what you are and isn't quite sure you aren't a really big meal. All that stuff happens, but you get the profound feeling that the mountain does not care. So I will read this and try to look askance at the bloodlust, the very genteel bloodlust. And then the final thing I got is from the Audubon Society, which has come up. Audubon and the Audubon Society has come up a few times. This is a larger picture book. I try not to get these things. They end up being just encumbrances, but this is The Pleasure of Birds. And it's a whole bunch of articles and pieces and artwork and photography from Audubon magazine over the Turkey Vulture by Roger Torrey Peterson over the span of a few years. Look at that. Just wonderful. Just wonderful. I'm sure that I have never read any of these pieces. What have we got here? 28 exquisite drawings, 18 pages of full-color photographs, and the integumentary text is by Chuck Ripper. Okay, great. Fantastic. It's just the whole contents is about different kinds of birds. Great. Fantastic. I will read this. I don't know if I'll keep it. I confess that I was drawn to it by the cover. But larger books like this I tend not to keep, but I do tend to get my enjoyment out of them. I will probably enjoy this. So there you go. That was my trip to the Brattle. for this week. I doubt that I'll be going back this week. I doubt that very much. But this will keep me going. I've got a lot to go through here. I want to go through that Ellmann book, probably read a couple of pieces. I want to go through that Harper thing and read. Maybe I'll put it on the pile for tonight and make the mental note to just read 5 pieces. Just pick 5 pieces of it for the first time, then put it on the shelf and go to it regularly. A lot of these things call to me, and won't take time at all. This won't take any time at all to read, and neither will this. Actually, The Geese Fly High, Minnesota, Minnesota Press. This won't take any time at all to read either. It's a tiny thing. We have The Guns at First Light, Last Light, rather, Rick Atkinson, World War II. We have Boswell for the Defense. We have The Defense Rests, On Your Housemaid. We have Gentlemen, Scholars, and Scoundrels, another anthology of Harper's stuff. We have A Long River Run, Richard Ellmann's occasional work. We have The Voyage of the Narwhal, mentioned on a Steve stream. We have Lawrence Block, an anthology of Lawrence Block. I think this might be a UK trade paperback. It feels that way. We have 2 of Don Walheim's old science fiction anthologies, The Best from 1977 and The Best from 1972. I'm pretty sure that Daniel's Bibliophagy was not alive when either of those things came out in bookstores. And finally, Touch Not the Cat by Mary Stewart. Quasi-supernatural, gothic fiction. The young woman has mental powers. I've read this in forever. So I'll put that on the pile as well. So there you go. That was a nice Brattle haul. Beautiful day. Wonderful time. And a little bit of scratching FOMO since so many of you went book shopping this last weekend. So I feel like I am not missing quite so much now because I went out and did a little book shopping on my own, which doesn't make any sense at all because I get books in the mail. But I did it anyway, and I'm not sorry. So I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.